Welcome back to TBI Analytics Podcast, where we interview and have conversations with people from the med-legal space and coming from all different perspectives. We have medical doctors, attorneys, case managers, you name it. Whoever is in this space, we want to hear from, because everybody has their own perspective of how they can help people in this personal injury world navigate these complex cases, especially when it comes to TBI. But today I have the pleasure of meeting with Christopher Fields, one of my dear friends that I've known for a couple years now. Chris, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me, Amelia.
Yes, he's an attorney here in LA, where you just got out of a almost 4, 5, 6 hour deposition today. Wow. So tell us a little bit more about that. What was that like? You started at what time?
This was a 10 a.m. deposition. We were defending it. I'm a party with, I'm representing one of the parties, and Ed Lee, who's, I'm of counsel to his firm. He was representing the other one, and it was just a long, drawn-out affair.
Wow. Yes. Well, thank you for what you're doing. I mean, you being a voice for these people, it definitely matters, and how they can navigate this world without you is nearly impossible. So thank you for what you're doing. I know we met a couple years ago at a Trial Lawyers University conference in Marina Del Rey, and it was a lovely event. Dan Ambrose always does a great job.
Oh, yeah.
And what I also learned is that you love to dance and sing. So I love that. You can bring it all to the table, not just being that lawyer by day, but at night you are a rock star.
You got to let your hair down at those conferences. You're imbibing all that knowledge, and then they do have nice affairs after, usually live music or something. Get to network and hobnob with everyone, and I enjoy it.
Yeah,
I got to meet you.
I know. Without that, I wouldn't know you. So I'm so thankful that we can let our hair down at these conferences, do a little crazy singing.
Yeah.
But yes, it's awesome. And then we hear from so many amazing people in this space that are doing incredible things, like attorneys and doctors that are, valuable information that we can learn from, golden nuggets from many different perspectives. And I like that this podcast is all for, just hearing from multiple perspectives, not just attorneys doing TBI cases.
Right.
It's more of how can we all learn and grow, because you're not always going to get that perfect case. And most of the time it's not perfect, right? So every case comes with its challenges. So we like to just share ideas and really put, bring to the table, your experience and where you're at in this world. But to kind of get to know you a little bit better, tell us a little bit more about where you come from. Where were you raised, and what led you on to the attorney path?
I grew up in Northern California, and I was a golfer, so I got recruited to go to Cal Berkeley. Wow. I ended up never golfing for them, but it got me into a good school. I would have gone to San Diego State with all my deadbeat friends, which wouldn't have been pretty. So it got me into that's so good. Yeah, it got me into a place where I actually had to start applying myself and studying, and there was a lot of smart people there. So that got me. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I ended up spent a couple of years there, and then transferred down south to UCLA. I think I was too close to home up in Berkeley in the Bay Area, so I just wanted to get a little further away.
Have your own growth outside of home.
Yeah. So I moved down to Southern California. I end up at UCLA, graduated with a history degree, and was just bartending. I bartended for several years through undergrad, and then I took time off because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my history degree, and I was just bartending, making pretty good money and having fun, but learning that I was marking time, and I knew some old bartenders, and I realized pretty quickly I didn't want to follow that track.
Yes. But what bartending gives you is that connection with people and being able to adapt to many different personalities that come in, and you're kind of a therapist, if you will, as a bartender. I know
to a degree,
I've had that
yes,
experience.
Definitely.
Yeah. So that gives you that window into somebody else's life, to be able to, I know serving alcohol is, not probably the best thing in people's eyes as to like helping somebody. But what I mean by that is you're actually diving into somebody else when you're in that space, a vulnerable space. You can get to know people in a nicer a nice environment, if you will. So when you're an attorney, some people don't want to be vulnerable. Your clients it's hard for them to be vulnerable. But when you're a bartender, it's like, oh well, I'm going to tell you it all. It's just something that people, I think have that perspective. So anyway, similar to you, I chose to go to a school based on my volleyball experience. And I tell people that I went to school to play volleyball, but the degree comes with it. You have to choose something. Yeah. So I didn't know what I wanted to do either. I chose business administration myself, but you just do what you got to do at the time. And yours was history. Yeah. So you're in bartending. You're now going, okay, what do I want to do with this history major? And so what made you choose the path of going into the law?
A good friend of mine who I was bartending with, he gave me the idea. Hey, he threw it out there. It was a throwaway.
Wow.
Why don't you try law school? So, no lawyers in my family. I just go, it sounds legit. And I started taking little steps towards that end, got in, realized that it wasn't, you can't dabble in it. You have to commit yourself. So I almost flunked out the first semester, squeaked through midterms, and then made a decision that, hey, either you're going to do this or not. I didn't want to fail. I wanted to, wanted to make my
I'm already
parents
in
proud.
It.
Yes.
Yep.
So I just committed everything else aside and just squeaked by in the first semester. Always did a little better. Second semester did a little better. Second year, and then I started to enjoy what I was learning. Okay. Started to see that there was maybe a greater calling here. And by the time I finished, I was pretty on top of it. I became a TA in my third for criminal law, and started teaching kids incoming in my third year. And then I just take the bar, you pass the bar 3.5 years. It's a pretty quick journey looking back.
Yeah.
It went by in the wink of an eye.
I bet.
Yeah. And, it's the only vocation where you can get you go to medical school, you're in it maybe 12 years.
Yes.
With internships and everything. Yes. It's very intensive. They tried to weed you out after the first year. I could see that because they don't want dilettantes. They want people who are going to be committed to have this, this great power. And then, you make it through and then you're there. Then I realized that once you get there, you're starting at the bottom again.
Yes.
Yes. You have to prove yourself. You have to get a job. You have to,
Like, now what? Okay, I've got this license behind me, but what do I do? So what made you go into the path of personal injury? I know criminal is where you started, but now we're doing personal injury.
You know what? I actually started working in tech right when I got out of law school through a bartending connection. Some guys who had some compression technology that they were taking to market to do video phone. This was back in the 90s. And so I didn't even really practice. I wore many hats: sales, marketing, building the business, tech, and some law. But another one of the partners was an attorney, so we all handled everything. So I really didn't get into personal injury until the early 2000s with my good friend Edward Lee, and I worked with him. We became partners. Personal injury and it was the Stone Age compared to how it is now.
Absolutely.
Personal
so much
injury
has
practice,
changed. Yes.
And we'll get into that, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, that's quite the journey. I love hearing how people get into the lawyer aspect of things in their life, because everybody has a different story. It's pretty cool to see that you don't even have to know at a young age that you want to be a lawyer. You just go and see what life presents. And it sounds like you just followed, and it's great that you're here, because I know you're doing a lot of good work for people. In fact, I know we've even worked on a case or so together. I think it's still going.
Yes.
But it was nice to be able to know that you are taking on those types of cases where people have the symptoms of a brain injury. We're trying to help them, and you're trying to navigate all these modalities on how you diagnose and treat a TBI client. So I appreciate you being open to hearing how we operate in this space of complex TBI, traumatic brain injury is a very convoluted, complex, you name it. It's a hard one to navigate. So thanks for having that drive to go outside the box and actually help people instead of just going, oh, it's too complex. I'm gonna dismiss. So Chris, tell me, what makes you happy being an attorney? What gives you that happiness to continue to go forward?
I really enjoy the David versus Goliath, because whenever you're making a claim against this monolithic conglomerate, these insurance companies who really, the people who make claims, the humans who make claims are just numbers, and all they see is that to pay out as little as they possibly can. They're happy to accept their insurance premiums, but they aren't very giving when it comes time to honor their commitment, honor their contract. So, I really enjoy being the voice of these people and asserting their claim through this process and getting them their just due.
Yes, absolutely. And it's almost similar to a criminal defense, I'm sure. I mean, these people are put in a situation where you're now defending them, maybe because they were put in a negative atmosphere, not because of their willing, but somebody else's, or association. By association, they were put there.
Yeah.
So being a voice for these injured victims, I bet it's rewarding. It's rewarding because these people don't normally. They can't speak for themselves because they really don't know how to navigate this world of medical and legal and how do I get this determined by an insurance company that my claim is worth something. So I can imagine that's quite the rewarding experience for you to go up against these Goliaths and be that little guy. So great. I understand how that can feel, absolutely, and being excited about showing up to work every day because you're going to be helping somebody navigate this hard world we're in. So what has been the experience in your professional life that has made you mature, if you feel the most? What do you think has matured you to get where you are now?
Good question. I think getting through the drudgery of the practice of law, because when I started, the only method I knew of was the overkill method. I just got to be there. I got to show up every day. I got to keep studying, keep handling. Keep pushing.
Yes.
And we were so limited in our knowledge.
Yes.
What we had. There was this old school concept back when I first started was 3 times meds, or so whatever the medical bills, this is how much the case was worth, regardless of what it was.
Right.
It could have been a soft tissue. It could have been a TBI, but we were hard pressed to diagnose them. So we were stuck in this paradigm where we just had to rely on
other people's experiences and what they're doing. Yes, absolutely. And then when you're learning so much, it's just overwhelming if you're getting so much information and what sticks and what is going to help the the client. Absolutely, that's got to be pretty crazy to navigate. But when you have enough experience and you keep putting more cases under your belt, I bet you it gets more confident. You're understanding, oh, maybe we should do something different if we get that type of case again. And you learn. I mean, we all learn and grow at different rates and different timing. And it's just, it's definitely something to appreciate when you can hone in on a particular way of doing something that you see an outcome. And so you're going, okay, this works. Let's do this again.
Right.
Yes, I bet that's pretty exciting to get those settlements and to get that big verdict for somebody that, otherwise wouldn't have been able to do that without you.
Sure. And it goes hand in hand with understanding and knowing the medicine. As you become more adept and comfortable with it, you ask the right questions, elicit the right information from your experts, from their experts when you cross-examine and question them, and educate your clients in how they can relate their injury, how its effects on them.
Well, when you're going to law school and you're getting grilled, like pretty, like you said, it's a pretty grudgingly, when you're going through law school and you're seeing just how hard it is to take on all of that, you're just being pushed on all these legal genres and jargons or whatever. And now you're in the personal injury space and you have to become a doctor almost. Not that you are one, but you know what I mean? You have to understand, how are you going to help these people find the right treaters, the right experts? And so learning the whole medicine is a whole other animal to take on, I'm sure.
It's another vocation.
It's just another vocation, exactly, that you have to dive in and overkill as well, learn all you can so that you can be a better voice for these people.
Yeah.
So tell me, what's the hardest part, in your opinion, about being an attorney? What is the most challenging?
Your last interviewee touched on it, Gigi, and one of the hardest parts is never thinking you're doing enough, thinking that what have I missed? How can I better serve my client? As you get more experience, you become more in tune with what's important, and to kind of separate the rest and kind of hone in. And that just comes with experience. And, everybody learns at a different rate. And some people hit the ground running, and you hear about young attorneys who really excel. My hat's off to them. It's taken me slow attrition over time, but I feel with my experience now in almost 30 years, believe it or not, I've become somewhat adept at identifying or cutting to the chase of a case.
It doesn't feel so overwhelming now.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we can do this. We're confident. We know we've been able to be victorious on these cases. So let's go get that next one.
Yes.
Let's go help that person. And so no case, I would imagine, is too challenging. If the person has, something wrong and you know that there is a claim here, you're going to do whatever it takes to help show it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. Yay. And then what would you say, do you have one that sticks out with you that you feel that was victorious, no matter if it was a high settlement or a high verdict? Do you have a case in mind that we can talk about?
I do. This was a young lady. She was 12 years old. This is 2008. She was injured going home from school. Her name was Kimberly Escamilla. And it was a traumatic brain injury case. She was hit by a garbage truck, one of the little vehicles that go in front of the garbage truck to pick up the bins and put them out so the big garbage truck can get it. And it was going through a school zone, and the side view mirror clipped her. And the question was did it just turn around and spin her around like in the police report, or did it throw her bodily? And then there was good witness testimony that she was thrown bodily around. At any rate, she had exhibited pretty profound traumatic brain injury symptoms. But diagnosing them was in 2008, as you know, it wasn't like it is now. We did a DTI study that wasn't normalized for 12-year-olds. And we got it in. In trial, we ended up getting it in. And we ended up getting a verdict after 3 weeks here in Compton. And we got a $2.6 million verdict for her. And we did not know. We had some great experts who were able to school us, but it was a tough case for us. And then they appealed, and they got it a new trial granted on the basis of the DTI because there wasn't normalized studies for kids at that point. So we had to go back, and right on the verge of the second trial, we settled it for a good amount, but not as much as they deserve because her life was affected.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have a full-on example of why DTI is not all and the same.
Right.
It's not one and the same. Perfect example. And this is what I, try to educate other attorneys and medical professionals about this is just because you have a DTI, diffusion tensor imaging sequence being used on an MRI to identify where the injury is, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be allowed in, because people don't realize that it's still a subjective test until you can get the normative database and have it quantitative so that we are comparing this to somebody else that is normal. And that's a perfect example of how not using the right DTI can actually hurt or might damage the case a little bit. It's great that you were able to get that verdict with it, so you can show that, yes, it does mean something, but it's unfortunate that it had to come to that decision, and wow, it got appealed because of that. That's one thing that I didn't even know you were going to tell me, and that's what I'm trying to teach people is yes, you can't just assume that because you are getting this type of measurement that it's going to be allowed in. So, wow. And that was 2008?
That was 2008. So I understand that the DTIs for kids, like if this happened 10 years later or now, it would be admissible. We'd be able to get it in.
A little easier.
Yeah,
it still depends. Even our DTI, the software that we have, its age requirement is 19 to 83. And so outside of that window, you can still do other things. Like within our protocol, there is volumetric analysis, which actually is measuring the lobes of the brain for atrophy or swelling. So that gives us a lot of measurement and data when you're running a FDA-cleared volumetric sequence like we have. And then you also have your susceptible weighted imaging, SWY, which shows the microbleed analogy. But not every mild TBI has microbleeds, so you'd be able to show that. So that's why we want to have a differential diagnosis. We want to have multiple cross-references of data so that we can truly hone in on that diagnosis and be confident that it's going to be allowed in. But when people are just dependent on one of those sequences to show, now you're kind of limiting yourself, and you're just hoping that the expert can really help to get that in. So it's still making its way. There's still so much science behind this now, almost 10 years later. So definitely a lot more robust in that we're getting these normative databases that are thousands, and we're able to age and gender match them. But even if, like this 12-year-old, if we were to go with this imaging with us, even though they don't meet that requirement for the DTI sequence to get that measurement, you're still getting a lot of good data from the other sequences that we're doing. So, but that's a great example. I love that. Yeah. And at least you were still able to get a good settlement. But wow, to go from a verdict to a settlement, I know that's got to be tough.
Missed it by that much.
Oh my gosh.
But they were able to buy a house, and that was the big thing for them.
And get her treatment, I'm sure. Get some, get her in a better setting. Is she permanently damaged? Is she going to be able to do some normal things, hopefully?
We got her some pretty intensive therapy, and your body at a young age is malleable, your brain, and she, over time, she's done a lot better. It still affects her, but now it's at 16 years later, she's doing pretty good. We keep in contact with her. She comes to our Christmas parties.
Wow.
Yeah, we're really close with her.
That's great. I've talked to experts where just because somebody has a brain injury doesn't mean they can't get better. And I've talked with them about, if your brain has tissue and it's active, then there is good signs that we can increase the neuroplasticity. We can expand the realigning of signals and allow that brain to still grow and thrive. So I like knowing that there are treatments and modalities that do help, that get these people not more of a normal life than what they might be doing
Yes.
after the injury. So there is hope. And with the more technology and science that we have nowadays, I'm seeing a lot of great treatment out there for especially young, because like you said, their brain is still growing and malleable and can hopefully bounce back.
Regenerate, yeah.
Yes, regenerate, exactly. What would you say are the values that you hold dear in a law firm environment, and what are those principles that you like to reiterate in your practice?
I think with our clients, caring, you have to care, otherwise, how are you going to relate their humanity to the insurance companies? Compassion, it goes hand in hand. Communication, you got to be available to answer their questions. Yeah.
They got to feel like special or that you care about them.
Yes.
They can't feel like, oh, I'm just another number, I'm just another dollar in their eyes. And so to get to that human level, I appreciate attorneys like you who I see at these conferences constantly learning, constantly getting better at what you do because of that compassion, because of that caring that these people, could use your voice even more than what you did yesterday. So you're constantly learning. I love that about you. You just went to a seminar in New York.
Yes.
Morgan & Morgan. So yes, tell us a little bit about that. I'll give them a little plug here.
Oh yeah. It was seeing how the big PI firm, how they handle their back office.
Yes.
We're a for attorney firm, so but there was a lot of takeaways.
Yes.
Client interaction. They measure every diametric there about how long it takes to get back to a client when they contact them.
Yes.
Being available off hours. They measure so many things that you can see how we don't do that, and that's something we can absolutely do.
Yeah.
And it all breeds the effectiveness and how strong the client experience is, because if they have a good experience with you, you have them out as a proponent. Your best fan out there, saying when something does happen, they go, okay, well, you got to see my client because he's the best. And then you can sleep at night knowing that you did, your a good job for your client.
Yeah, your due diligence.
Right.
You're doing it all that you can.
Sure.
So that you can be the best that you can be.
What else are we doing here?
Exactly. Always learning. I love seeing these trial lawyers like you that have gotten the verdicts, that have gotten the settlement, that aren't sitting back going, well, I know what to do. I'll just keep doing that. Instead, what you're doing is applying yourself, educating, constantly learning, and you know enough to know that you don't know everything.
Absolutely.
And yes, it's so cool to see. And that's who I appreciate really working with, because then I know you're in it for the long haul. You're in it for the right reasons. And let's go help these people, right?
Yes.
So yes, awesome stuff. And what would you recommend to your younger self if you were to look back and say, all right, younger Chris Fields, I know you don't know where you're going as far as even in undergrad, you didn't know what you wanted to do. And now you're in law school and you still didn't know if that's, really what you wanted to do. I'm sure you were tested a few times that first year, like everybody is. But you stuck with it. And so what would you tell that younger self now that you know what you know?
I would absolutely tell him to, with undergrad, if I knew that my calling would be to eventually become an attorney, I would have zipped through undergrad because I would have had some direction. I kept switching majors. I loved history. It was great. And it was a good segue into the law, because it gives you a good breadth of knowledge of the world and different
and
cultures.
How we got where we got. Yes.
Absolutely. And then when I would have gone straight into law school, and when you're in law school, trial ad, moot court, anything where you're on your feet and speaking and actually applying these principles that you're learning, they're unparalleled.
Oh yes.
Yes. and then interning at the DA or the public defender, where you get some hands-on in-court experience and just see that it's the mystery unveiled. You see, there's just a bunch of people here advocating, speaking. There are these processes that you can learn, and it's not a big mystery. And speaking in front of people, it's not so tough. That's the path I would follow. I'd say just get out there and start doing it.
Yes.
And then that type of confidence it breeds, it goes off, it flows over into everything else. Once you have that, you can learn the book stuff. You can learn the cases, the procedures, writing the briefs. But those who can get out there and do it, say it, express it, they're the ones who will excel in the law.
Yes, for sure. That kind of a confidence, that experience, absolutely. Great way to put it. Absolutely. But you know what? I also believe that everything happens for a reason, and you were put in those different avenues for whatever. So it could have been that person you were hanging out with at that time needed your energy, or there was a different path that would have happened because you didn't choose to do history. There's just so many things that you could, say, what if?
Yeah.
But I love that way of putting, if you could do it differently, just go all in. Don't doubt yourself. Know that this is a good path. You just got to, know that there's a learning curve for everybody. And you're not going to get it all in one night, but I know you want to. So, yes. And how do you visualize yourself in the next 3 years, if you will? Are you going to be...
I have some distinct thoughts on that.
Okay.
And I think I could draw from the last 3 years, because since COVID, I have a renewed vigor for the practice of law. I've been rejuvenated because I've been doing all the continuing education stuff that you spoke of, and we got an enforced diet of it during COVID because the great trial attorneys weren't trying cases, they were teaching, and I availed myself of that. So since then, I've been accreting so much knowledge, and I've just been so anxious to apply it to the cases that I handle now and the clients that I'm working with. And I every day I'm waking up and I sprint to the office. I enjoy my work now. I didn't always. It used to be a lot of drudgery I was speaking of.
Yes.
But the next 3 years is more trial work, better representation, better outcomes, and
Yeah, you like the trials, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do well in that. You're compassionate. You can relate with you. You have that presence where I think you could talk to anybody, and they would feel safe and comfortable. And as a juror, I know that comes across. So, I think you're in your right element, going for the trials and continuing on, and being a role model really for all these attorneys that are still in pre-lit. Maybe they want to go out there and face the trials. And you came from many different environments to be able to eclectically put into that experience of a trial lawyer. So that's exciting to show and to really hone in on. And so good for you. That I can see you definitely 3 years from now. Yes, Chris Fields will be with the best verdicts, the great settlements, and helping those clients get the justice that they deserve. So, yes, keep going. And I know we touched on one of your difficult cases, but is there another case that you had in mind that you feel like, you know what, we did some good justice for this client?
Let me think. I know we have some cases in the pipeline right now, some more TBI related cases. I have a school teacher that he was hit going home. He was substitute teaching, and it really had an effect on him. His wife would relate to me how he's changed, how his recall and his sense of direction, and just those little things that you can really see or can be attributed to a TBI. We did we ended up filing suit. We did a 998, and oftentimes they minimize the impact of it. I think we did a very effective representation of for him in that they ended up offering the policy limit, because this was a case that I think would have garnered a much higher settlement, but they offered it, so we end up getting. He was happy with it, and I think he's going to be doing okay. And this is a pretty recent one.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, you hear about the cases of opening up policy limits, and we have some cases prepped for that. But that was a case for a really nice man with some serious impact, and it wasn't a major collision, but it really affected him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you're there as an advocate for your client, and it's what that client wants. And as much as I know, I've talked to attorneys where as much as they want to go to trial and push that envelope, not always does that client want to do the same. Mm-hmm. And so I bet that's a challenge to get on that same page, and because you know what you're capable of doing and you see the justice that could happen if we could just do this, right? Or if you could just get your client to see, take that risk, and I think we can really do some, better numbers for you, for your future. But at the end of the day, it's all about what does that client need for that moment, and you kind of have to. Well, you don't kind of have to. You have to listen to your client, because they're going to appreciate you, being there for them and advocating for them. But I know there's attorneys that just really want to push that envelope to getting them to go to trial.
Yeah.
Don't take that settlement. We can do better. But then you really are taking that risk of putting that person through a lot of drudgery and hardship.
Yeah, these brain injuries are insidious. The clients look normal.
Yep.
They look fine. You can't see them suffering in here.
Yeah.
You have social media portraying them in their good moments of smiling, because you don't put suffering photos online, and so you really have to draw it out from their significant others, their family, their coworkers, sometimes the dry cleaner who just sees them once in a while and goes, hey, he doesn't small talk with me anymore.
Yes.
He comes in and I can tell he's changed. Just that, but you have to get them up there.
Those are moments that are very impressionable, as well as needed to show, because sometimes these people don't even want to admit. I mean, how many times have you had a case where the person probably has a TBI, but they don't even want to admit their symptoms? They don't want to admit that they're different, or from the time before, because it's a pride thing when it's sometimes the male breadwinner of the family doesn't want to admit that there's a brain injury there. People push themselves to go back to work when they shouldn't be. There's so many things, right, that comes with listening to your client, but also pushing them forward with getting them to admit that there is something wrong, and being okay with that it's okay to admit that you are injured. In fact, we want you to be able to do that so that we can share this with the medical advisors and experts to how to get you better. But yeah, I can see. Do you find that often where your clients are having a hard time?
Absolutely. And one thing we insist on our clients do is just something as simple as just keeping a log, keep a notepad by their bed, and when they wake up or before they go to bed, jot down something about that stood out. Yes. I was walking into the bathroom and I forgot why I went there.
Yes.
I got confused when I was driving to the store this morning, and I ended up driving to my daughter's driving somewhere else.
Whatever.
But you keep that, because over time, if because a lot of these claims take a while, they could take years. File a lawsuit, several years, and then when you look back and then you have this record in their own handwriting over time, and they forget a lot of what they went through, and then you can see also a pattern and a development over time, and then when they have to express at either a trial, deposition, later on, they can look back in their notes and go, oh yeah, I do remember that. Yes. And that happened several times actually, and and it's really important that you have that record.
It's vital. And self-reporting is one of the most crucial things you can do for your own case. So if you're, injured, you definitely want to sit there and write out how are you feeling that day, what has changed, what's whatever. It does matter. And that self-reporting to a doctor that's now going to maybe prescribe a brain MRI because of the symptoms that this person is exhibiting, how else are you going to convey to an expert or a medical treater what's going on if you're not keeping track of the intricacies of your day-to-day and those symptoms that can happen? So, because there are a plethora of symptoms when it comes to TBI, and it's not a cookie cutter injury. People are going to be affected differently, and what lobe of the brain is injured is going to be, contributing to what symptoms they're having
the different effects. And I'm fascinated by that, about if you have it to a different area, it manifests so differently, and you have to be able to recognize that. If you don't, you're doing your clients a disservice.
Yes, absolutely. So recognizing where those symptoms come from in the lobes of the brain, and then the neuropsychologist to be able to correlate that, what do you know? These are the symptoms they're having, and then you see it in the imaging. Wow, that lobe of the brain is affected. It just makes sense. And now you have that correlation and diagnosis to be able to support them even better, so that we can. Which
is why we're so happy to have you and your coterie of experts who really help us out when we need to ID those it's injuries.
Just so valuable. I am so glad I found this niche of line of work that I'm in, simply because I can see the benefit it's having with everyone that's using it. And almost 600 cases later, with this latest technology that I've been adopting with the DTI software that we have, it's pretty impressive to know that these 600 patients prior to this, wouldn't have those answers. And so it leads them down a whole other road of normal. They're not normal. So, and then it gives you just more evidence to be able to show the evaluator of a neuropsychologist that, yes, they're not just malingering. They're not just saying this. This is real when you have that hard evidence to back it. So, yes, thank you for being open to learning about more of this technology and helping and supporting your clients in that as well.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So what's the next conference? You're loving all these.
Yes. I don't know that there are any towards the end of the year.
Not the rest of the year.
But I've heard a lot about the linear conferences, and there's a settlement conference, I think, in February, March, which I was thinking of. But then there's a big one in May, June that everybody talks about linear.
June.
And I went to one recently in Fort Worth, Satch Oliver, Depositions Our Trial, which is pretty much front-loading the discovery, so that when you take a deposition, it's like a trial presentation with big blow-ups of demonstratives. In the TBI space, it would be having all the, the DTI imaging, all the neurologist reports, and you have them all lined up, and then you take it's a teaching thing too, and you're taking the deponent, the defense expert, and having them make admissions about different injuries, areas of the brain that have been affected. And it's super smart in that you're if you are forced to go to trial after that, you have a lot better chance, because you're getting all these great admissions in a very usable format where you can just take snippets of the video and actually use them at trial.
Wow.
And the way they're doing it is ingenious. It's very applicable.
Yes.
I think it's a lot of work. It's not easy, but what we do is a lot of work, and going to trial is a lot of work and very expensive.
Right.
And it's sometimes it's a coin flip.
Yes.
When you have a good case, a good client, and everything, you still could lose.
Yes. Based on a judge, based on a jury, you just don't know. But when you know that you've been prepared enough, like as much as you can be, and you've taken all of those things you've learned and actually applied, and then you can feel good about whatever happens, and because you did the best that you could do. You've applied all of these conferences and these podcasts and these people that are doing the work and applying that as well. So kudos to you for doing all that.
It's good if you feel good about the effort you did, but in the end, we have to win.
Yes.
We have to prevail for our client. So, it's about minimizing the defense edge, because the defense has an edge. They have unlimited money. They can do all their delay, deny, defend tactics and obfuscate and hide the truth. And, in the end, we have to deliver for our clients. So I think these new tactics tactics as far as like doing the stronger depositions and getting the imaging and the pre-litigation stuff just improves our chance of succeeding at trial, which we owe it to our clients to do.
Yes. Start off on the right foot and keep it going from the very beginning. And if you can, it just only sets you and that client up better. And Lanier, I've not been to that one and all the conferences I've been to, but I can't hear enough about it. Like, there's so many people that have gone that told me it is one of the best for that learning capacity. I mean, it's amazing the knowledge that this man has and is able to teach it in a way that people can really adopt and put into their own practice. But yes, he is quite the expert when it comes to.
Another thing I'm learning about these conferences is that, they have a lot of like the Mardi Gras, the TLUs, and they have the big featured speakers, which are great, but usually they're generally all taped now, so you can always see them, and you're always feeling like you're missing something. Go in and go in with a specific plan, like you have a case you're working up, and they have these small groups where you can get pretty renowned attorneys, trial attorneys, who, if you're having questions about your voir dire, you can go in there and have specific questions, or even get up to present on your case and do a mock voir dire with a great attorney who have some real good information and that they can help you with, and then you keep in contact, you build a relationship with them. So that's what I've been doing the last couple of years, is doing more of these hands-on conferences where you get to actually get up and present. Yeah.
One of the best things I love about this industry is the constant need to learn in the people that are doing it, the work, and not feeling threatened by another, or, oh, well, he's my competition, so I can't share the goods, right? A lot of other industries, I think it's an ego thing, and they don't want to, they want to stand out. And you can still stand out, but yet help so many others. Right. And it raises the tide together. And when you can all be in a united front like that, it just makes the industry even stand higher in people's eyes. And so I love the camaraderie that I'm seeing over the last few years, especially when all of these other conferences are coming together, these people that are, understanding that it's not just the big national conferences where you're going in a room of 100 people just for that, lecture. The intimate one-on-one case managing, case, learning is awesome. And when you can take that kind of education from somebody with that kind of experience and allow, the pride not to get to you.
Absolutely.
It's what's really cool to see. And I love it. I love what you're doing in this space. You're truly doing God's work, and I really appreciate that, and I'm sure all of your clients do as well. So how can somebody get a hold of you if they want to work with you or even just ask you a question?
You know what? I can't espouse my esteem for my former partner, Ed Lee. I'm of counsel to his firm, and he's such a great attorney.
Edward Lee, awesome.
And he would be here, and you'd be much better served if you had interviewed him tonight, because he is a wealth of knowledge and an awesome attorney. I'm of counsel to his firm, and I handle all my cases. Me and him, we studied in law school together first year, and we work very well together. And so any of my big cases, I bring to Ed, and we work them up together, because it's just like being in law school again.
Yes.
We have that same drive, the competition knowing that we're going up against the great Goliath.
And who better than somebody who you went to law school with to
we
be
have so
in
much
that
fun.
practice?
It's just like being, when all you had to do is worry about the test at the end. And so we put everything else aside and just focus on that. So I can't wait for you to interview him. You'll really enjoy it because he's not like me. I'm kind of I talk a lot. He's very confident and reserved and just a wealth of knowledge. Just such a sweet guy.
Oh, that's so cool. But see, that's what I love. We bring our flavor to the table, right? It's not just because if we were all like Ed, then it would be a not so diverse world, and we can't learn from you and what your perspective is because it's all valuable. But we love you, Ed. I know you're listening. So, and yes, I can't wait to interview him when he's out here next. We'll have to make sure that happens. Yeah. So, but yes, Ed Lee is the firm.
Right.
Here.
It's the law offices of Edward Y. Lee.
Okay.
And my email address is chrisfields@eyllaw.com. And it's if you look at our website, eyllaw.com, maybe you'll see a whole litany of the cases we've handled. A lot of the TBI cases, the major settlements and verdicts we've had, and it's pretty exciting.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I can't wait to work with you more. And I know the one case that we have going right now, I'm sure it's going to be a great outcome.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep pushing that one forward.
Absolutely. Keep plugging away.
Keep plugging away. All right. Well, go out and do some karaoke. I know you love it. Okay. And let your hair down.
Okay. Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for being on here. You're welcome.